Hi, I'm Barry Farber, and this is In Search of the Magic Tree. What magic are we looking for? Well, if you think about a tree, several things come to mind. One, the roots, the foundation for something great. Two, the branches, representing the connection and continuation of our legacy as we pass down the values and beliefs to the next generation. And three, potential, something that starts as small as an acorn and becomes a giant oak. We're going to explore how we can build the mind, body, and spirits of our children, how to raise our kids with key traits like patience, positive attitudes, courage, empathy, determination, and more. Join me on this adventure as we talk to celebrities, athletes, entertainers, business leaders, educators, brain surgeons, and more about the magic to building success at an early age. We have a very special guest today. Neale Godfrey joins me, and she is not only a New York Times #1 best-selling author, but she's the author of 28 books on how to empower kids and parents to have a healthy relationship with money. Besides being a New York Times #1 best-selling author, she's had 13 appearances on The Oprah Winfrey Show, Good Morning America, The Today Show, CNBC, and more. And the accomplishments she has are tremendous, which I'll get into. But I wanted to welcome her. Neale Godfrey, thank you for coming on the program.
Thank you. It is so great to be with you.
What age do you start teaching children to value the use of money? Like, when does that start?
Well, I think it's a great question because we teach kids the most complicated thing that they'll ever learn in their life, which is language. And we start when they're tiny. We start really age 3. I mean, the truth is we teach them at birth. But by age 3, they start connecting the abstract concept of a sound to an object, to your face, to you. And that's when I also start teaching them other values and life skills, the same way that you do. You teach these kids to start connecting to their world. And so, one of the big things is the natural consequences of money is the only way you get money is to earn it. There's no entitlement program out there. It's not that I whine and I can bet you and I get something. You have to earn that money. That's what happens. So that's when I start connecting it. If you want something, then let's do some chores to start doing that. And they're ready when you ask them what mommy and daddy do with money in the store. If they say buy things, then they understand the concept of medium of exchange, which is very sophisticated, by the way. It's not just that you walk into the store and you take what you want. You use money, and the kids get that.
Well, let's talk about that, because you talk about work ethic and chores. What could you share with the parents, grandparents, whoever, or the people that are raising kids today when it's an early stage? How do you introduce that? What are some practical ways that you've told people over the years and answered a lot of questions about how to get that started with the relationship between chores and getting paid for it and the value relationship?
Well, the wonderful thing is that you get to incubate them right there in your own home. And they see this house, but they don't understand how magically the clothes get washed and the food gets cooked and the garbage goes out. They just sort of exist there and stuff happens. So get them involved. And what's wonderful is the little ones want to help. They want to help mom and dad. They want to be part, of the household and feel grown up. So what you do is you start them doing little tiny chores. And obviously you're doing the chores with them. So they're helping you to set the table, without the knives, and to put, maybe the little ones can put the napkins out there, and then they can be in charge of taking the napkins and putting them into recycling. That's a really big deal. So you pick little tiny chores. They can dust. They can do, again, little chores. And then what you do is you write a chore chart. They can't read, but they know trust me, they will point out what they have done. They know dust. They know, yeah, they'll know. And so what you do is you put, a little check mark by what the chore is that they've done. And at the end of the week, they get a little money. And what I do is I pay the kids their age per week. And, so a 3-year-old, a 5-year-old gets $5 a week. But
Mhm.
that's only part of it. The other half is the budget part. And a budget, as you know, is a habit. And it's a habit that everyone struggles with. So what I do is I make it very visual. And by the way, I want this all to be very tactile. I want them to see real money. Don't start in the digital world, because if you start in the digital world, they just think it's another video game. It's not real. So what you have to do is start with real money. And so you get 4 clear plastic jars or envelopes, and you label them. So the first jar actually the first jar is charity. I want 10% to come off the top to go into the charity jar. They're not going to understand right away what charity or tzedakah is. They're not going to get it right away, but they will as they start to grow up. And you need to instill the value that you're always going to have to give to other people, because look how lucky you are, and we share a value you teach in terms of generosity and being connected to the community. So 10% comes off the top. Then you divide the rest into thirds. Next third is quick cash, instant gratification. They worked hard, they get to make their own decisions. It's a little bit of money, it's not a lot. So you take them into a store, a real store, and they can pick out, they want stickers, they want something. They can buy it, but you have to tell them, if you buy that, that's it for the week. And that's a really huge lesson. If you want that candy bar, which I will permit you to do as a special treat, that's it then. So we as adults have a tough time on instant gratification.
I love that. That's some real practical tips. I was, your latest best-selling book is Be Money Smart in Tough Times for Parents and Grandparents. What are some tips there? And obviously we're talking right now about 3-year-olds, 5-year-olds at an early stage, but obviously you're talking about kids who are in their 20s, and living at home or starting to work and getting their jobs. But what are some key practical things that you can share with parents and grandparents at that stage, from Be Money Smart in Tough Times, your latest book?
Well, actually, the lessons are exactly the same. They're just more sophisticated. Instead of little jars, you're into the digital world. The kids have to learn the difference between a debit card and a credit card. We are giving them real financial tools to begin with. But just like you wouldn't hand the keys to a car to a kid and say, go figure it out as you're driving, you're not going to hand them a financial tool either. That financial vehicle needs instructions. So you teach them, here's a budget. Part of it is instant gratification. Part of it is you push it off. Part of it goes into savings. Part of it goes to taxes. This is the way the world works. It's a habit that you're still teaching them. And by the way, you're still giving to charity. Same thing.
Mm-hmm. When I remember shoveling snow or mowing lawns or doing these odd end jobs and getting paid for it, and it was such an exciting time. I don't think I had obviously the discipline that you sound like you can have with your children and what you've gone through and the history that you've had. But is there anything what are some of the biggest mistakes that parents make in this area?
I love that question, because the biggest mistake is to let money be the biggest secret in the family. Don't talk about money. Polite people don't talk about money. Don't ask what that costs. Don't do this. Don't do that. Well, then there's no way to understand or let these kids grow up to run a real budget. They get their credit card and they go nuts. It's magic money. I don't have to pay for it. The bill goes to my parents. So it's get them involved. Stop making it a secret. Of course, you don't want them discussing it in front of Aunt Phyllis. Don't ask her what she paid for that ugly blouse. You don't do that. But polite people don't do that anyway. That's not the point, but they can ask afterwards. They can know what your house costs. They can know what the bills are. And frankly, I'm an entrepreneur and I've always shared everything with the kids. And my kids knew, is it a filet mignon night or is it a macaroni night? And there wasn't any shame to it. It was, that's the way it works. Oh, okay.
Let me let the audience and the listeners know about your background. 1972, she was one of the first female executives at the Chase Manhattan Bank, which at the time was the largest bank in the world. And she went on to become president of the first women's bank. And you've had, obviously so much more experience over the years. Would you do anything differently with your children? I know you have grandchildren too, but with your children now knowing what you've gone through, would there be any changes in the way that you raise them regarding money and the values there?
The truth is probably not, because I was teaching the basic life skills and the values around money and my values, and I value generosity and I value volunteerism. The kids have always been involved in that. And I value finding your passion and pursuing it. Both my kids are entrepreneurs. One's a social entrepreneur and one is in the wellness world. So, I love who they are and what they're doing. They're very involved in giving, very involved. It's part of their fiber. So, yeah, it's great. And you know what? You raise them that way, they know that. I mean, there's not a trip that we go on that we don't have a day of giving. My son and I just got back. Travel is one of my passions, and we just got back from Zambia on a safari. But there's a day of giving that's there, and it's built in.
We're talking about money, and it's funny that you're bringing this up. And I have three amazing kids and an amazing, they have an amazing mother, and we had a great experience raising them. But I remember taking my kids to a place where we would get this food. It was the food pantry. We'd get this food. We'd weigh it. We'd have certain clients we'd have to take it to. And they never forget the look on the face of these people. And then also some of them who later we ended up finding out that we couldn't go there because they had passed away. They had some mental problems, some issues and so forth. But there was something there, the practical hands-on delivery that we forget about, not just giving money or sending a check, but what you're talking about really hits home with me about, I'd love you to share anything else about that tactile, hands-on, practical piece that we can do with our children beyond just giving them an iPad and telling them, here, watch this.
Well, it's very interesting. I have a story about my son when he was 5 years old. And again, my kids were raised on this. And we were living in New York City. I was president of the First Women's Bank. And I would allow my kids to go into the little local bodega on the corner of the little corner store with me, obviously, and they could figure out what they could buy. So my son had his quick cash, and I was a little liberal on the sugar in those days, and I let him buy Tootsie Roll Pops. So he got the Tootsie Roll Pops, and he's counting out, and he's figuring out how many Tootsie Roll Pops. He's standing in line, and in front of him is a woman. She has one orange. It cost 33 cents. She put it down on the counter. She was a homeless woman, and she dumped her little cup of change, and the store owner was counting the change. She didn't have enough. So he told her, put the orange back, and she was collecting her money. And my son was watching this little tiny, 5-year-old. And he said, whoa, excuse me, ma'am. I would like to buy that orange for you, but I have to start over again with my Tootsie Roll Pops. So she said, no. She got embarrassed. She said, no, you can't. And he said, no, I can. I just need to start over. And now everybody in the store is silent. And I'm sort of looking at this kid going, where are we going with this? And he goes, no. And she said, no, I can't let you do this. And he said, no, this is my quick cash. I work for a living. I get to decide how I spend my quick cash. I want to buy the orange for you, but I have to put Tootsie Roll Pops back. And she again insisted no. And he said, didn't you read my mother's book? Now she hadn't, which I thought was interesting. But she finally relented, and he did this whole thing, and he put the Tootsie Roll Pops, he bought the thing, and he came back to me. I was weeping. Every woman in the store was weeping. This was amazing. So he came back to me. And I'm crying, and he's looking at me like, uh-oh, he's in trouble. And I said, I'm so proud of you. That was amazing. And he said, no, no, no. You shouldn't be proud of me when I'm doing what I should be doing, because she couldn't afford that, but I could. And someday when I need food, there will be somebody there for me. Well, that was like
Mm.
it. Every woman in the store sent me their children to raise. But anyway, it, it, it's those types of aha moments with the kids when they get it. They get it. It's not hard, but it's profound.
That is an awesome story. I'm trying to think of baseball right now. I don't know. Somebody once told me if you're about to get like emotional and you don't want to cry, just think of baseball or some sport. I'm telling you right now, those things move me. Those stories out of the mouth of babes. These kids that they're smarter than we are. They teach us um, when you do build that foundation.
Well, and also it's interesting because people have said, well, does it last into teenagehood, when they become jerks? And I said, interestingly enough, a friend of his, this kid Ryan, had saved his money all summer long to buy a car, and he had $5,000 to buy a car, and a piece of junk, but he was going to buy a car. And I didn't let my son hear. I was sort of, how you do that stealth walking through the kitchen, but you're listening, but you're not establishing eye contact, so they think you can't hear, that part. So I was doing kind of the mother stealth walking, and my son said to him, Ryan, you can't spend $5,000 on the car. And he said, why? He said, because you didn't give 10% to charity. Did you give 10%? Did you give $500 to something? And I was like, oh my God. So I'm walking, and of course Ryan goes, no, I didn't. And my son goes, those are the rules. Let's go pick out a charity. And they did. And these are goofy teenagers. So his mother called me up at night and said, did aliens pick up my son and drop off somebody else who looks like him? Because he walked in to say that he and Rhett picked out this animal shelter that he's giving, because he loves dogs, he's giving $500 to. And I said to her, no, that's kind of the way it works. And to this day, Ryan hasn't forgotten it. Yeah.
It's a great lesson. I thought we would be talking about, the actual, teaching and lessons on money and putting out the money and counting. And so, I didn't even know where we were going to go with this show. Your background is so immense in this area. And I love that story. I love both those stories. I just love the fact that you've done the homework and you raised them right, where they came out, and that's what came out of their mind. Do you have any other recommendations for parents? It's funny, you said it shouldn't be like nobody talks about it. And I know a lot of families, it's very hush hush. You don't talk about it, which is crazy, because then that does inhibit them from understanding the value of it. But how do you talk about it? What are some things that you would say to kids? Um, I'm thinking 3 to 7, those years. I mean, and then later on, that should be natural, but in those years about money.
Well, you still talk about your values. You talk about, hey, kids, look, there are all these things that we are saving for because it's important. We're saving for college. We're saving for retirement. We're saving for a new car, a new home. There are emergencies that crop up each month. The car needs tires. The dog is vomiting all over the carpet. We need to take the dog to the vet. Those types of things. So you start subtly teaching them the way it works. Hey, kids, let's take a vacation this summer, but you know what? We can only afford, and don't be afraid to say those words, $2,000. Let's figure out what we can do for that. We could drive, we could, do day trips, we can do whatever. You guys go online and figure it out. And by the way, if we get on a budget, we all might be able to come up with ways to save money. We don't need designer coffee every day. We don't need designer water. Let's figure out together as a family, let's put a challenge together of how we can pull out more money each week to do some cool stuff that we want to do as a family. Throw it back at them. Let them go on the internet and figure it out.
Neale, I love that. Let me throw this at you, though. Knowing some parents who feel like that, these kids have it tough. They're learning, they're getting their way through life here. I don't want to make them feel uncomfortable with the pressures maybe that we're under, and they're, do you know what I'm saying? So some people do keep it quiet. What do you say to them?
Well, if you're bankrupt, if you're going, paycheck to paycheck and you're really petrified, no, don't. But that's the time for you to be looking at your own financial life. What are you doing? Cut it out. But the big thing is, again, to reassure them. Don't say stupid things like, don't worry, if something happens to me, you'll be okay. That means nothing. This is what women were told years ago by their husbands when the women didn't work and they were home raising the children. Don't worry, you're taken care of. I don't even know what those words mean. What does that mean? A kid wants to know what happens. Where do I live? Where do I go to school? Do I have a bicycle? Do I get to go to summer camp? Kids want to know very specifically. So you do it at different age levels with them. We have a 50+ divorce rate in this country. The kids are petrified. What do you think? They don't hear the fighting in the household? Most of our divorces, 85% of all divorces, are based upon money issues. You think the kids don't know there's a problem in the house? And then they walk in on a fight and everyone goes, oh, no, everything's fine. Well, the kids aren't stupid. And we know how this builds up with stress. So you turn around to the kid and you say, it's honest, we're not doing well. We're talking about different things. We will keep you posted as things go. I don't know, but I do know that I love you. I do know that you will go to school. I'm not sure where we're going to live, but you know what? We will be a family. The family may be, the three of us, and that you get to visit dad or vice versa. But this is the way life works. Unfortunately, it's full of changes. And to raise them that everything's fine all the time and everything's going to be is not fair. You raise them without resilience. You raise them that they're not able to cope with change. Look at the stress that our kids have been under because they were raised in some fantasy bubble. That's not how life is. It is full of changes, but I will raise you to be able to cope with them.
I'm talking to Neale Godfrey. By the way, if anybody would like to see more information about what she does and what she speaks about and her books, you can go to NealeGodfrey.com, NealeGodfrey.com. You would fill up my day, 24 hours. I could talk to you about all this, and I would love to have you on again. I wanted to end with a question that could just kind of give some insight. If you are in front of a group of parents and, a lot of parents say, I don't know what I'm doing here. This is the first kid. I read everything. Obviously the hands-on, taking them places, museums, reading to them, doing the tactile things you talked about, getting them involved in chores and all these things are really important early on. But if you had just a couple of things to say to these parents and they have young kids under the ages of 5 and they're just, some of them just don't know, they don't spend the quality time. What would you say to them that would just really send a message home to kind of be the last question here?
You know how stressed you are about money. I don't mean you, but they are about money. And you don't want to pass that legacy on to the children. And wouldn't it be wonderful to help them design a life where they could earn, save, spend, and share in a healthy manner to achieve their goals, their dreams? Wouldn't that be a wonderful gift to give to your kids? Why wouldn't you do it?
No, absolutely. It's a great point. What's your definition of success, Neale?
That you wake up every morning, you want to jump out of bed and go do what you want to do. And it doesn't mean that we all have fantastic jobs. We don't. But if you know in yourself that what you're doing is that you're, filling your soul and you're doing something that you want, and it may be after work that you're doing it, but that you're not stressed about it and you're happy and healthy and have that social communication around you and you're giving back, there's nothing that makes you feel better than give back. And it's okay to want things and to save the money to get them. It's fine. And don't feel guilty. Check the guilt at home. It's not an emotion that does anything for you other than bring you to your knees. So just be excited about life and what it can bring and what really do you want. and then design it.
Neale Godfrey, speaker, author, board executive, entrepreneur. Fantastic information. Thank you, Neale.
Thank you. Great to be here. I'd love to come back.